Welcome to today's episode of the Konnekt 7 podcast. I am your host, Thaddeus Sims, and if you've been connecting with me lately, share an episode with a friend because you know I'm going to say some crazy shit that's actually going to help them. And with that being said, I have some announcements for you. So, we are officially going to start a digital family reunion, right? So what that means is family time is a go, it's a green light, right? Now, y'all been hearing me talk about this and I've been working these past few days to make this happen. And what this is going to be is like a live episode where those of you who listen to the podcast religiously, you'll be able to come in on a live episode and we'll be able to talk live, chat, be with the shits, just funny stuff. So this will be the first time. So y'all please go easy on me because I will still have to play around with this and see how this works. So I'm going to try to get some practice in before that happens. But yes, it will be live. It'll be a great time just for all of us to just kick it, really. I know you mostly hear me, but I've been hearing a few requests of we want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, let me work on that. So it's coming. So the link is going to be through an invitation. So the link for that, right? Let me give you the actual details. Duh. So there's going to be a link. It's going to be in the description of this episode. Now, I'm still playing with these time zones here. So for those of you in the States, the time is going to be the date and time. So the date is December 1st at 7 p.m. EST. So let me repeat that. December 1st, 2023 at 7 p.m. EST. Wherever you are at in the world, I'm going to need you to jot that down somewhere. For those of you who are in New Zealand, right, that is December 1st at 1 p.m. So y'all can see there's a big difference. So I'm still trying to play with these time zones. So when you click on the link, you may see some different time. I'm still trying to see what that looks like for everybody once they get the invitation. But I will also send out a email or so to those who listen to the podcast, or make an update on my social medias of okay, hey, this is when it's going, give you guys a reminder and stuff like that. So if you want to be in the know on that, and if you have not subscribed to the newsletter, please do so when I send that email, you are ahead of that. So that was the announcement. Now let's get into the fun fact here. Right. And I'm going to tell y'all the actual episode because I'm pretty sure y'all already see it. But we're going to get into the fun fact because I've been dying to share this one. Some of y'all who are real smarticles, y'all probably already know this, but I didn't. And I found it to be fascinating, but it's simple. So the fun fact is the only letter that doesn't appear on the periodic table is J, right? And I'm a little bit into science myself, but when I seen that, I ran to Google because I'm like, what? So I was like, let me look at this chart. And I'm scanning. I'm like, damn, there is not a J on there. Now, I'm not the best researcher, but I'm pretty sure there is no J on there because, we be updating things like iPhones. So I don't think it's on there. And unless they did it yesterday, then yeah, it's not on there. So yeah, I just found that to be very interesting. So you are more than welcome to pause this episode and run a Google like I did. Now, with that being said, let us get into the episode, which is season 3, episode 8, Konnekt 7. For all my Konnekt 7 listeners who are students and about to start their first jobs, I have a game-changing recommendation for you. If you were told, like I was told, that you need a resume to get a job, but thought you had no experience, don't worry, your boy got you. First off, you need to know about my girl, Ross Fisher. She's not only an international CV and resume specialist, but she's also the brilliant mind behind the book called My First CV. What that means for you is that she gonna say that ass from being overwhelmed like we all was when we needed a resume for the first job and thought we didn't have experience. Her book is a how to guide into creating your first CV. What you'll discover is that you have tons of experience and expertise that is needed in the work world today. Now, I know that some of y'all have small attention spans, but it's a quick read and very much an investment into building your dream career. You can click the link in this episode's description and download your copy today. Now, going out there and get that money. Now, you might be like, okay, why are you naming the episode after the podcast? What's going on here? I'm going to bring you to it. So, speaking with a few listeners, and also my partner as well, it came down to I've never told y'all what the 7 means in the podcast, and so we're going to talk about that because it's going to lead into a whole nother doorway. So sit your asses down and take a listen. Gather around the earpiece here. Okay, so the meaning of the 7, right? So this is going to go a little deep, so y'all have to tap into my deeper side. So the number 7 has a lot of meanings for me, especially when I was creating the podcast. So the first is that it's my life path number. Now, this is getting into more of the spiritual side, and you'll see why I even said that. So for those of you who, haven't heard of the life path or don't even know what that is, of course, I'm going to say Google it because I don't want to butcher it. But it's just basically like, with the numbers that's in your birth date, you kind of can see what your life path is. And it pretty much, again, as I said, it kind of gives you a description of your life path. Not only that, but the number 7 has always kind of been around for me, and not just them 7 slots, but, we don't want to talk about gambling right now, but the number has always been around for me. And then I learned later that 7 symbolizes like the balance between the spiritual and the physical. And that is very huge in my life. Just with the minute I popped out of my mother's vagina, I was different. And again, y'all, this is going to go deep. So some of y'all might be like, this boy drinking. I promise y'all I'm not. And if she was alive, she can totally back everything up that I'm saying. But like I said, I was different. So I popped out, September 21st. September 22nd. My bad. September 22nd, 1992. And when I got here, on this planet Earth, before I knew it was a little bit ghetto, I just kind of like knew stuff, or I just felt stuff. Like I was telling my mom, like, I remember when I was like forming in you, right? I remember the sounds, there was music by an artist. I don't know if it was LL Cool J. I don't know, but it was a particular artist at the time. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, like I just remember like this type of music, and I was like, the reason, like I remembered that I was attracted to like this individual in the sense of like, I knew him, but I know I didn't know him. And I learned later that, my mom was like, yeah, like that was music that I would play, and she would put like the headphones on her stomach. And like, that's, what it was. And I'm like, that's why. Okay. Cause I'm like, I don't care about this person, but I feel like I know this person. And it was because of the music. I would tell her like the sounds that I would hear in her stomach, just all types of stuff. Mind you, for some of y'all like, yeah, nah, you capping. I promise y'all, I'm not. And I would tell my mom, and she would look at me like I was an alien. So that was a whole thing in itself, And then growing up, I just kind of felt things and knew things. And sometimes it was just like ahead of time that I would know these things. And I would tell my mom, I was like, yeah, like I see this, but I don't like it. As a kid, you just kind of say shit. And my mom would just kind of look at me sometimes like, okay. And there was times where my mom would stop wrapping like my gifts or birthday stuff because she would say, you already know what you're gonna get. Or I would hear her tell like a family member, it could have been my aunt, but I remember her just telling her stories. Or I remember overhearing a conversation like, child, ain't no point in rapping it. He already know what he getting. And it wasn't that like she told me, because she didn't. Sometimes I just knew like, okay, I'm gonna get this and I'm gonna get that. And I would tell her and she would just look at me like, why? Like, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Here, ain't no point in rapping it because you already knew. So here. And again, for some of y'all may be like, okay, well, you told her this, and that's why you got it because she knew you wanted it. But like, there were times where I would walk up to her and be like, "Are you getting this?" And she would just look at me like, "Bro, what? Okay." So, and as I get older, some people, well, I can't say some people, I had a hard time looking people in the eye, right? And it wasn't because I was like nervous or fearful or I wasn't confident. It was because when I looked in people's eyes, I would see shit that I didn't want to see, right? I'm not going to out these people, but there were grown ass men who, when I look into their eyes, it was just like, I just knew like they were just going through shit or they're struggling with some stuff. And it was just like, it would play in my head like a movie. Like I look into their eyes and then it's just like, boom, everything that they're talking about or that they're going through and the things that they're not being said is just like playing in my head. And I was just like, bruh, I don't want to I don't want to know this. Like, I don't want to look at this person in the eye and feel as though that they feel like inferior or something or they have traumas with this. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I just stopped looking at people in the eye. People was like, you got to look a man in the eye when you're talking to him. I was like, bitch, I don't want to look at what you got going on. Like, I just want to live my life. I want to watch my Power Rangers. I want to get home and watch my Wild Thornberries. Definitely my Static Shock. I don't want to see that you got trust issues. I don't want that issue. I don't want that. I don't want that in my life. I want to sing my Static Shock theme song and keep it fucking moving. But no, we can't do that. So, because I got to look you in the eye, because apparently I need to be a man, but I'm not even a man yet. I'm a whole boy. Like, my nuts haven't even dropped yet. Calm down. So, I say all of this to bring us back on topic of I would just experience a lot of these things, which people call like, spiritual gifts, spirits, this, that, and the other. Now, I say all of that because all of this is like a point. I'm bringing it all together, right? So I was very, we'll say, involved in the spiritual side of things that I didn't know. And here's a funny story, because I will say this, and I think I've said this on a podcast before, but if I didn't, I probably said it in little bits. But for the longest time, I thought that there was just like, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I thought like we were a family that had like these superpowers or like these gifts, right? Because I would watch these TV shows and it's like the family plays stupid. We'll say for lack of better words, the family will play stupid until the child or the person gets a certain age. So it'd be 16 or 18, and then it's like, okay, they bring you into the room and it's like, okay, now we got to tell you, what you are, what's going on. And for the longest time, I would ask my mom, I'm like, Mom, do you not feel these things that I feel? Or do you like not feel these spirits or hear these spirits or see these things that I see? And my mom would just, for the life of her, she would just not answer the question. And then I was just like, okay, you know what? Maybe I just have to wait till I'm like 18 and you're going to tell me like, this is why I didn't tell you before. This is what you are. So I waited years only for her to tell me. She was like, son, the stuff that you see and you feel, all of that is stronger in you. I would feel these things, but I never opened that door or tapped into that, because she was just like, that just wasn't her thing. She was like, I would be afraid of that. And, she's like, I would just pray and I would just go to sleep. But she was like, for you, it's stronger in you. So I can't really tell you nothing, son, because I haven't experienced what you've experienced. And I was just like, man, you lying. But she was telling the truth. So again, it goes back to that 7. Like I would always just get these messages of like being in like this spiritual side where I would feel and hear stuff. Mind you, I went to church like when I was a kid, and the pastors would say this, that, and the other. And I'm not going to go into all of that because some of y'all, I'm not going to have that battle with y'all. I'm just going to share my experience. I went to church, and there was a lot of things the pastors and all of them were saying that didn't make sense to me, right? I literally, it was so funny. Like, the whole, you only have one life thing. And I was like, Mom, I don't think so. Cause I was like, I kind of remember a little bit of stuff before I kind of like came to you. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like it was like a life before here. Mind, and I swear to y'all, I'm not playing with y'all. I promise you, these were conversations that I've had with this lady. I would tell her stuff because me and my mom's relationship, it wasn't the typical mother-son. There was times where my mom felt like my older sister. There were times where the roles reversed, where she would be out in public and I felt like I was the adult or I was the big brother. And so it was just like our relationship was just very multidimensional. And I was just like, yeah, I just feel like the last one, like I feel it. And I just remember like you were like my older sister. And the relationship was different. And she just smiled and laughed because she felt the same thing too of like, yeah, because the way you be sometimes, and I'd be looking at her, I'm like, me, the way you be. So I say all of this to say that I grew up just in that spiritual world of stuff. And I didn't really know it until I got older. Right. And this goes into like I said, that's the whole number 7. And you can look it up again, life paths, the spiritual meanings of the number 7. And like I said, I learned that it was just that balance between the spiritual and the physical. So I was also trying to gain my physical bearings of, responsibilities, adult shit, all that stuff. And now we get to the part of Konnekt, which for the whole thing with the podcast, the Konnekt part is that bridge between like that spiritual and the physical. So you have the 7, which symbolizes balance between the spiritual and the physical. And then you have the Konnekt part, which is the bridge between the two. And so for some of y'all who watch like cartoons or whatnot, I immediately think of Avatar: The Last Airbender because I resonated with that heavy. I was like, bruh, you got shit you got to do over here on the spiritual side because they fucking up, and you got shit you got to do over here on the physical side because they fucking up. And it's just like, bruh, you got to get this shit balanced. So with that history, that goes into where it got into the creation of the podcast. And so the podcast serves as that medium or that bridge, that I created just for others to kind of cross, to gain some spiritual and like physical knowledge. And as y'all know, I just use my life lessons as the design for the episode. And simply put, since Konnekt 7 is the bridge, we got the spiritual, we got the physical. I tend to just create these episodes where it's just like, all right, some people who may not necessarily know how to get into that world or that world of spiritual stuff or guidance or things like that in a safe space, and somebody who's going to talk to them, about some authentic shit and not know social media shit. Like, oh, I heard this, so I'm gonna just repeat it. It was just like, no, we finna talk about some real serious shit. If you finna get into the spiritual world, you need to know what you finna get into. And if you're going to get in the physical world, you need to know what you get into. Because I've also came to discover that I was in both worlds, and there were people who were heavily in the spiritual and their physical part was lacking. And there were people who were heavily into the physical and their spiritual sides were lacking, right? And so I was just like, let's bring that aspect to where people who do listen to this podcast, they can walk that bridge safely and can gain like, okay, I'm one of those people who are definitely heavily in the physical and I kind of need to get into the spiritual, but I have no idea how. And so in the past, I created episodes that kind of talked about it a bit. And then in the spiritual, there are some of us who, and this is the category I was in, I was heavily in the spiritual and my physical stuff was like lacking and I needed to get that balance. Right. And so it's kind of like for those who are in that spiritual aspect and they love and they gravitate towards it, but they kind of need help in that physical, meaning like you got responsibilities, boo boo, you got bills you got to pay, you have your relationship with your family, your traumas, you know what I mean? It ain't all sunshine, crystals, sage, baby, you gotta face Grandpa Roy and deal with that. So that was just like the roots of Konnekt 7, right? Y'all know why I started it, because it was, again, the beginning of just like helping people learning how to connect with those around them. That was a thing for some time. And that connect part was simply just that bridge. And because of that, it's just like, this is the best way I can describe it was like, this is how I wanted to bring everything together, bring those people from those different worlds into this, and they can like learn and get stuff. Now, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, because this season we're being very authentic. I fell out of that spiritual wave, and I fell out of it pretty hard. And it wasn't until, and I can actually say her name now, she was the person who inspired the last episode. And I said her name was Kay, but her name is Kisa. So she said I can say her name. So, and she's been a listener of the podcast, and in speaking with her, she was saying like, to be nice, like I would love to hear more of that spiritual side. And even other things she was just saying, like bringing back that goofy side, because I can go there, but I bring it back to professional. And she was like, yeah, it'd be cool to hear more of the goofy side and just like the spiritual stuff and just bringing it back. And after listening, like, to her feedback, I was just like, I really kind of left my roots of the podcast. Yes, it was communication and people, but the roots were that spiritual aspect and that physical. And I feel as though for the last, I say even in the beginning of this season, and also like a few episodes that were technically in between season 2 and 3, they were more physical, and I didn't really talk about that spiritual side. And honestly, I didn't talk about the spiritual side for a lot of reasons, because there's a lot of people who can be closed-minded. There's a lot of people who, you say one thing, they interpret it a different way. And I just wasn't ready to deal with all that. But now, yeah, nah, fuck all that. We finna talk about it. So I'm gonna tell y'all why, though. I'm gonna really and I told y'all a little bit like on my personal aspect, but why it kind of faded out of my life a bit. And the podcast aspect was the first thing that comes to mind is like it became very trendy. There were a lot of people who were just like, oh yeah, like I'm spiritual AF, like I'm going to get my crystals and I'm going to charge them in the sun, and I'm just going to get my aura cleansed. And I just need to just talk to that inner child, like that's just like what it is. Like, I just really feel like the source is just like having me just like face some of these things. A lot of stuff is coming up and I just want to just get in alignment, and it's just like, okay. And then all of a sudden you see these posts, inner healing, light workers and light bodies, and like, let's talk about it and let's all get together, kumbaya. Like, we're gonna be positive and we're not gonna focus on the negatives. We want to try positive energies in this space. Y'all get where I'm going, because y'all seen those posts too. Now, like, I had this conversation with Kisa and a lot of other people, outside of the podcast. Baby, when you're in that spiritual world, those who know what they're posting now, baby, that's it ain't it. some people, they are talking about some things and it goes deep. Now, I'm gonna bring those things back here. But that was one of the reasons why I was just like, yeah, nah, I'm just not feeling the spiritual stuff, because I'll be damned if I say something, and y'all say like, oh, like inner child healing. My inner child wants to fight you. So there was that. Another reason why, again, I fell off the spiritual wave for the podcast was just I was too involved in the spiritual world. I mean, I was way too involved. It's I can't say it was a bad thing, but like I was so involved that I just I it was a period where I was just like, I am so tired of this physical existence. I really would just rather, and I'm not saying this in a suicidal way, but it was just like I'd really rather just be done and just, just be done. I just want to be done. I'm tired of it. It's ghetto here. I don't like it here. The people, they're peopling. USA is USAing. The world is it's just doing too much for me. And I just feel like somebody pushed me to be born. They pushed me out of the pot, and I just wasn't trying to come down here. I really feel as though I wasn't supposed to, and it was just like, this is ghetto. And so I was just done. And then I was also too involved because I would meditate all the time, but I was so into doing things on the spiritual side that I wasn't doing like actions. There was action steps that needed to be taken, like physical steps, and I would have a hard time with that. And, what may seem like the logical thing to do, I would kind of think more on the spiritual side of it. And so I really didn't have that balance. And so that was the reason why I was just like, yeah, I needed to come out of that. And so it involved me it revolved around me to like leave that world and check out the physical and just kind of like get immersed. And I found other things along the way, but it was like I was way too involved. And it honestly, that we should go to the next step. It became very hard to balance both worlds. And I'm going to say something that y'all probably don't hear everywhere else, because I'm just going to keep it authentic with y'all. But again, when you're tapping into like that spiritual world, and this is not to scare you or anything like that. Honestly, it's just like it's really just kind of like a responsibility, I'd say. But when you tap into that spiritual world, for me, it became very hard to balance, because it's kind of like you're maintaining relationships with your friends, family, and things like that. So imagine juggling that. But now imagine you have your spirits, that you're working with. It could be your ancestors. It could be, fill in the blank, whatever works for you, baby. But it's kind of like now you're trying to maintain those relationships over there. And on top of that, you got you can't really say too much over there, because now you got to be careful who to think, like what you say to people. You got people in the physical who think either one, you're crazy, demonic, or fill in the blank. And so it's just like you can't really talk about too much over there. So it's like you're living a double life, and it can be hard to like balance that, because you may be going through something that you may think is physical, and it's really like, yeah, nah, you got some spiritual shit that you need to do, because you have actually some things that's fucking with you. And what I mean by that, just to clear things up, I don't mean that there's some bad spirit fucking with you. No. What I mean is that everything is connected. So spiritually, you may have some like healing to do. And I don't mean inner child healing. I mean, no, you have a very false thought that's fucking up everything. And so you need to tap into that spiritual aspect. You really need to get into that bigger mindset, and you need to kind of like surrender to whatever power you want to go with, and get that guidance of like, okay, hey, I've been struggling with this for some time, and I don't know how to handle this by myself. So let me speak with you who can see, have a better perspective than I can, and talk with me, i.e. an example. Yes, you're having issues, with relationships and finances because you have had this experience that you didn't resolve that happened 2 years ago. How the fuck does that matter right now? Well, you're holding on to these thought patterns. You're holding on to the ways you do things. You're not being as open, you're not listening. And so what's happening in this world is affecting that world. But if you fix it here, it will be fixed over there too. Well, that doesn't make no sense. I know, because you don't know what you don't know. So baby, I'm for to teach you. So you have to go through that process. And that's very light. I really say that in a very light way. There is more to it, but there's all of those things where it's just like, because again, once you open that door to spirit, it ain't really no closing, because now you see things, you know things, right? And it comes down to, okay, you home, but you feel that you need to go in that room and chill out for a second. You feel spirit calling you. You need to go ahead and listen, because it's gonna help you. I know you're tired. I know they beat your ass at work. I know you had to restrain yourself from fucking up Barbara at the front desk, but what you gonna do, right? So again, it can get very hard to balance those worlds. And with all of that, like with this just reflection, it was just the spiritual is like the roots of Konnekt 7. And I've been out of balance with that. I can say that. And that's just where it's coming back to, is just like I'm back now with that balance. And that's just where it's coming from. Like, I just feel it's like these next few episodes is just to the episodes moving forward is just bringing that aspect back unapologetically, because there are a lot of y'all. I'm going to call some of y'all out now. There are a lot of y'all that I've been sensing. And there's a lot of y'all out in the world who y'all have a lot of things y'all have going on that y'all really think is physical. And it's really spiritual. And I'm going to give this to you, because you might be like, I don't believe that. I'm pretty sure there is something in your life right now that you have been struggling with, that for the life of you, you tried damn near everything, and you continuously try different things, but somehow you keep coming back, or you keep struggling with certain things. Or you may constantly experience certain things in your life where it's just like, man, I'm still in the same scenario. I keep wanting to grow. I keep wanting to change. But every time I take this step forward, I'm always taking a step back. Why is that? You'll find that in a sense, it's kind of like you're stuck. And it may not be a stuck where it's like it's a one day thing, but you subconsciously, and you feel it, but you push it in the back of your mind, that you're kind of like in this phase or sorts, and subconsciously, you probably told yourself like, yeah, you'll figure it out. But it's like you keep coming back. Certain things keep happening. There are patterns to you. There are other things that you're going through, right? And again, it comes back to that spiritual stuff. But I'm going to take it a step further for y'all too, because some people be hearing this, but I need to just say the truth, because it's like, what's really be fucking like a lot of people up, and some of y'all who are listening, probably you're involved too. What's fucking a lot of people up is fear. And it's just that fear of that unknown. And I get it. It's that fear of, okay, getting into that spiritual side. It's that fear of like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be, what doors I'm opening to, or I want to do this, but I don't know how to get into this. Or, I have this faith over here, and some of the things you're probably saying is contradicting that. And it's just like, I get it. I do. I will also tell you as well is that the answer. And the funny thing is, how to do it, but the fear of doing that thing is what's holding you back. But it's okay. It's okay. We're going to talk more on these subjects, and we're going to have more balanced episodes, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to unpack some things together, and, y'all are going to be entertained as well, because who wouldn't want to be told about themselves, but you also laugh at it too, right? And I'm going to be honest with y'all. Before I end this episode, I'm going to be honest with y'all. This spiritual side of things can very much be fun, right? It's a lot of unknown and fear with it, but I promise you there's other sides to it where it's expanding. It's fun. It's like when you do tap into that world and who you work with, or who you pray to, whichever works for you, when you get those answers, it's like those are like the, how can I put it? They just open the floodgates for you, right? It's like you hear something, you feel something, and it's changed the course of your life, right? You've probably been going in the same direction for years, and you just heard something, and it's just like, bro, that's completely switched everything. And I will tell you, I've constantly had those experiences to where it can be automatic sometimes. And the people, whoever you work with, y'all build this relationship. And I what I love about it is like when you do get into that spiritual side, it's kind of like, be it like a therapist, be it like a friend, or someone who knows you very like intricately. They know you very well to where when you come to them, they can just tell you what it is and it works. Those who are close to me know that the spirits that I work with, my ancestors that I work with, they know how to get my attention, and they know how I operate versus how I don't. And just to kind of give y'all an idea, is like you gotta come with me with energy. You gotta come with me with some power. Because if you come at me with just like, yeah, like I kind of need you to, baby, I done tuned you out. I'm gonna go fix me the sandwich. But if you come in like, bitch, you need to sit down. Matter of fact, you got 30 minutes to bring your ass in this room for the fuck all this shit up. And it's just like, well, damn, why be so aggressive? It's like, cause bitch, you know why. I will lift all this shit up in here if you don't get your ass to hit 30 minutes. And I'm not repeating myself. Fuck around and find out if you want to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the hostility. But I'll be there in 20. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just funny. And I promise you, it gets very funny. It does. And again, I know I know I gotta end this. I do. But it's just one more story that just comes to mind. Is it goes back to the fear thing. I remember when I was at work and I was talking with my manager at the time. And if she's listening to this episode, she knows exactly who she is. One of the things, again, when you tap into that spiritual world, things are revealed to you. So in this case, me being in that world, she was talking to me about stuff. So she was my boss. So she very much had a line between, drawn at, there's only so much I could tell you because you're, my employee, and I'm not fit to cross that line. She kept it very professional, but spirit don't see it that way. Long story short, she was talking to me, and I was just getting these messages from her ancestors, and I was just like, I hear you, but I need to say this to you, but I'm going to say it to you how they're telling it to me because I don't really know this, but I'm going to trust what they're saying. And I was just telling her just like stuff. And I was just saying it like, this is what this one is saying. And this is how he's telling me to say it to you. And she's stubborn. So she was listening and she was just looking at me like, what? Like eyes wide. And I was just like, yeah, this is what I'm feeling. But they also know you stubborn. So I would hope you take this advice. Right. And so, of course, her being her, she was stubborn with it. And we're outside and there's this sign that was like up on a wall. It was a no smoking sign. So, those things are pretty on a wall. They pretty much on there. They ain't coming off. So it's a no smoking section. And the sign was on the wall or whatever. And so she's talking. And then next thing you know, when she got stubborn and she was like, yeah, like, I guess she was rejecting it. The wind picked up and literally the sign just like fell right in between us and conversation. And she looked at me. She was like, are you fucking serious right now? I was like, hey, that's your people. Mine don't do that. Mine don't do all of that. So that's definitely your people. So I'm gonna need you to listen. But you know what, boo? Do you? I was the messenger, but I'm gonna let you do you because mine, they just gonna beat my ass verbally when I get alone. So yours decided to move shit around. So I'm gonna let you handle that. And so I say this, it can get fun because when you're on the side of it and you get stuff and you tell people and you just see their responses and reactions and shit happens, it's just like, you get used to it and it's just like, yeah, baby, that's on you. I'm gonna need you to work that out. But that being said, guys, That is what Konnekt 7 is all about. Spiritual fuckery, laughter, signs falling, everything. But on a serious note, I just wanted you guys to know that's what the 7 means in Konnekt 7. The whole premise of Konnekt just being, again, that platform for stuff. And for the episodes to come, we're gonna, incorporate some of that spiritual knowledge for you guys. So with that being said, thank you guys for clicking play. You are greatly appreciated. And I look forward to chatting with y'all very, very soon. Later, later.